Welcome to episode 198 of the Grip Strip Podcast, the Crunch Time Closers edition of the Grip Strip Podcast. My name is Philip Matthew. I'm your host, and I'm with my co-host, the iRacing Indy 500 champion, computer genius, a gentleman and a scholar, and one of Jacksonville Jaguars' biggest fans, and he's busy watching the game right now. His name is Josh Fine. What's going on, brother?
I am doing great, Phil. Of course, first Monday night game in Jacksonville, Florida in 12 years. First time they've been on Monday Night Football in 12 years since 2011. I know what you're doing back then. I was in high school, so it's pretty exciting to see this finally. But just a good time there. Of course, we'll talk about the Truck Series and the Xfinity Series there and the crunch time that happened there. But of course, our fantasy league crunch time here with 1 week left in the regular season for fantasy before the playoffs start, and both got to try to get in that. So ready to go and talk about all of that.
Yeah, definitely. We'll recap Cole Custer and everything that went on in the Xfinity Series in 2023, most competitive of the three major NASCAR series. I'll talk about Ben Rhodes becoming a two-time Truck Series champion and joining elite company with the likes of Ron Hornaday, Jack Sprague, Todd Bodine as repeat champions. We'll get into more details in both series, of course. We'll talk about Week 13, which saw the San Francisco 49ers open a can on the Philadelphia Eagles, and the Jacksonville Jaguars right now playing on Monday night against the Cincinnati Bengals. In 2011, I was in college and I was celebrating Tony Stewart winning his championship. That's what I remember about 2011. That's really about it. Because I really couldn't remember to tell you what I did anything outside of 2011. I was I was 2 semesters away from finishing college, actually. So there's that. We'll get in it. We'll talk about the Snowball Derby and the Roundup. We'll also give a recap of Extreme E, their season finale in Chile. Get into other news that took place across the world of motorsports. The defending Cup Series champion will have a new spotter. So we'll talk about that and more. And we'll get into Josh's sim segment, things going on in iRacing and gaming, and we'll close the deal. So, yeah, I mean, the Xfinity Series season, you look at how it went for a good amount of it. It was mostly about John Hunter Nemechek driving for Joe Gibbs Racing, and you had Austin Hill for RCR. They were the dominant figures early in the season. I mean, granted, John Hunter Nemechek was the dominant guy throughout the vast majority of the season, put himself in a position to possibly win an elusive championship, similar to what he did when he was in the Truck Series with Kyle Busch. Won 7 races more than anybody, had second most stage wins on the season. But in the end, Cole Custer with consistency and performing in the clutch, especially at Phoenix, became a Xfinity Series champion, basically after getting in a lot of ways demoted from the Cup Series back to Xfinity. He responded. It was slow at the start of the year, trying to get the cars to a point where to be competitive. Really didn't have any help from his teammate in Riley Herbst. And Riley Herbst, of course, didn't even make the playoffs. But Custer ended up winning on road courses. He won at Portland after Parker Kligerman cleaned out Sheldon Creed late in that race. And then Custer qualified on pole at Chicago in the streets and however many laps of that race that actually took place, it was basically all under yellow, and they called the race off, and Custer ended up with that victory. But he was uber consistent otherwise throughout the season, and he gave himself a chance to advance through the playoffs as every round went on, while other drivers or other teams were struggling or putting themselves in bad positions. You look at the year for him: 3 wins, 14 top fives, and 21 top tens, 6 poles. So that leads the series. He led 586 laps, average start of 6.2, which is the highest, of course. Well, when you have 6 poles, that will happen. And then he had an average finish of 10.8, which is basically, the 4th best finishing average amongst regulars. And he ran at the finish of 31 of the series, 33 races, 26 of those on the lead lap. So Cole Custer put himself in position on a weekly basis to have a chance, and that's really what stood out there. I mean, Bristol was the start of the playoffs, right? Yeah, and he qualified on pole there, finished 4th. He had the first round was solid, all top 10 finishes. Then he got a 3rd place finish at Vegas, qualified on the pole at Homestead, but struggled and finished 14th or 13th, a lap down. And then as Jacksonville scores a touchdown with Evan Ingram, that's good for me, because I have both.
Good for me too.
Yeah, because I have Trevor Lawrence and Evan Ingram in my dynasty.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. No, I'm seeing. Well, I guess I'm delayed, but whatever. So that's fine. Yeah. I get to see how it happens.
Sorry.
No, you're good.
Yeah.
But no, I had Ingram on the bench. I signed him in Sam Laporta and took Laporta because they had a slightly higher projection. But it's good pick there. Finally, Ingram gets his first touchdown on the season, though.
Good timing for it, and in a game where you guys want to impose your will and start basically getting ready to try to go and possibly get that number 1 seed there. And I mean, speaking of number 1 seeds, it took Cole Custer putting it in reverse and crossing the line in 19th to get into the Final 4 after the incident that we'll talk about a little later when we're talking about Austin Hill. But when push came to shove and he needed to perform, he led 96 laps at Phoenix of the races 202 and won that championship with Tony Stewart on the pit box. So Cole Custer's been a guy that has been a dude that's been around for a bunch of years as a young gun, talented driver. Yes, his dad being the best friend of Gene Haas has played a role in his, I guess, rise through the ranks, but he also has shown talent and ability to win races. He even won a race in the Cup Series. So he gets dropped back down to the Xfinity Series. The round of 8 was not pretty for him, but he was able to persevere and get himself in a position, and by doing that, he was able to get that championship in a year that Stewart-Haas Racing was definitely one of the worst organizations in all of NASCAR. So, I mean, for Cole Custer, it's a huge deal for him and for his career. Who knows what it'll be like. I think the way that Stewart-Haas Racing is kind of angling, he probably will be back up there in 2025, I would think, more than likely, because, like, I know that they have a lot of invested in Chase Briscoe. They do like Ryan Preece, and it sounds like they're going to have Noah Gagson in the 10 car, and then Josh Berry up there in the 4 car. So they're gonna be working on that as a long-term deal there. So there might be an opportunity there, uh, whether it's Ryan Preece's car or the 10 car, for Cole Custer to come back up. But then also, if they go and make an alliance, which, I mean, I don't know who they'd make an alliance with at this point, because Rick Ware Racing is connected to RFK. But Cole Custer, though, put himself in the mix, and he showed the kind of talent and the possibilities and potential that he has there in that race, Josh. And he went and closed when it mattered most.
Yeah, Cole Custer had a really interesting season. Many races where he led laps, but had races where he couldn't quite finish. Look at Fontana, led 46 laps there and had a good run, but ended up finishing a lap down in 27th. Look all the way at the end of the year at Homestead. I was there at that race, and he had the best car in that one, but ends up getting into the wall and getting a flat tire, and finishes off the lead lap. There is still 13th, but had a win there. And of course, all the positives that he had throughout the season, like winning at Portland, where he had a good run there throughout the race, and was able to capitalize on his position and won at Portland. And then Chicago, I mean, it was a debacle and everything, but with how that race ended, but he was the guy in front when it counted and got the win. And then, of course, going into Phoenix and gets the win there to win the championship. So for Cole Custer, really just he won at the right times during the season for him. And maybe not the best driver in the Xfinity series. Maybe you can argue that, say, John Hunter Nemechek had a better overall season, but Cole Custer won when it counted the most. So that's kind of an embodiment of this playoff format. So it's hard to say in like old formats whether he would have won, but in this format it works out for him. So you have that going for him. And then, of course, you mentioned the Stewart-Haas Racing, their performance this year. I mean, it does say a lot for Cole Custer with the year that he had, or his career that he had in Cup, and then going back down to the Xfinity Series. And we've seen what he could do before in the Xfinity Series, and go back to this car and this team, and goes out and wins a championship while the rest of the Stewart-Haas organization underperforms. It does say a lot there, but at the same time, for him to be able to do that shows the progress that he's made in this in this series. So we'll see if he can leapfrog his way back into the Cup Series in the next couple of years as seats open up. We'll see if he's able to get into a quality ride, whether that's outside his organization now or not. So it's going to be interesting to see what he's able to do, or if he's if not, maybe he's just better overall fit in the Xfinity Series here for Stewart-Haas.
Yeah, that's something we're going to have to see. I mean, obviously, he's going to come back to defend his championship. The Cup opportunities are not really there. I think he'll probably be in the 15 Rick Ware car next year, because they use a bunch of different drivers. So I think he will be one of those drivers in that car. So that's to be determined. But I mean, went out there and did what he had to do to get a championship for Stewart-Haas, and get himself out of that the realm of has he performed well enough to justify his situation or not. And he has. He did it this year, so it's something that will keep keep in mind or focus on as we move forward into 2024. Another person that we're going to talk about is John Hunter Nemechek. I mentioned him. He had 7 wins on the season, more than anybody else. Had the most top 5s of anybody in the series with 17, and tied with Hill with 24 top 10 finishes. Led over 1,000 laps. Had an average finish of 9.5, average start 8.1. Ran lead lap finishes were 29 races. Was running at the finish of 30. But in the end, just as what happened to him in the Truck Series in the final race after having a dominant season, fell short and had issues at Phoenix and wasn't able to close the deal. Ended up finishing 4th in points. Now, of course, for John Hunter Nemechek, he already knew that he was going to move on to the Legacy Motor Club and to drive the 42 car in 2024 as a teammate to Eric Jones as Legacy Motor Club moves to Toyota. We'll talk about one of the owners of Legacy Motor Club and Maury Gallagher later on in terms of the Truck Series, but Jimmy Johnson, after decades of being connected to Chevrolet, was able to go and connect with Toyota to try and to become that third organization, the first non-Gibbs organization in a while to be connected to Toyota, because 2311 essentially is, an extension of Gibbs anyways because of Denny and all. But John Hunter Nemechek has shown an ability to perform in the regular season, but when it comes down to the late in the season and needing to close, it has not went very well for him. Granted, what is it here? Yeah, finish. Okay, so he was able to, in the round of 12, go and get a victory at Texas, finished 3rd at Bristol, and finished 8th at the Roval. And then he blocked himself in with a 2nd and 3rd place finish at Vegas and Homestead. Didn't win, but he was involved in all the wrecks and stuff because of the way the race ended at Martinsville. The 18th place finish probably wasn't indicative of where he had run, but at Phoenix, he started 3rd and he finished 28th. And you wonder, is it a thing where he's not able to close in pressure situations? He showed earlier in the playoff that he could, because I don't even remember what he did in the Truck Series, if he had actually had a good playoff that last year he was in the Truck Series or not. But either way, Josh, we look at John Hunter Nemechek. He's moving back up to the Cup Series, was trying to join his father as a champion in the Xfinity Series, and was unable to for whatever reason. But he's going to be moving up, and he'll be taking Ben Bayshore with him to the Cup Series as well. But what were your takeaways from John Hunter's season? He won more races than anybody. At times, he looked unbeatable. But once we got late into the playoffs, that air of invincibility started to be chinks in the armor and unfortunately, he wasn't able to get the job done.
Yeah, John Hunter Nemechek, once again kind of had a very similar performance to what he had in the Truck Series with how his wins and seasons stacked up, and he makes it once again to the final race in Phoenix with a chance to close and win the title and everything. I mean, he's not as quite as dominant as in the Truck Series, but still overall solid season. And for him, he came out in Phoenix, and I think he probably started out okay, but as the race went on, they just didn't quite have the car to be able to compete with Cole Custer and the other playoff contenders. So for him, it's kind of a disappointing end to his season. Had a chance, to close out, but doesn't get out the way that he should have. So it's going to be interesting to see how he responds to that this upcoming season here, or in the Cup Series, I guess, especially a Legacy Motor Club team that's kind of had its ups and downs, was on the rise going into 2023, but 2024 they're kind of in a rebuild mode sort of with Toyota. So it's going to be interesting to see how he responds to that being in the Cup Series, and if he can kind of grow into the driver that he's shown in most of his career, and compete for top fives and top tens, or at least finish in the top 20 here in the Cup Series. So just a interesting season, but for whatever reason they just have never been able to close here in the the championship 4 round of the playoffs. So be interesting to see if that trend continues. Should he get into a good situation here in the Cup Series, if ever, but we'll have to see if that ends up playing out. So still a solid season, nothing to be ashamed for John Hunter Nemechek.
Yeah, he's you give him the kind of equipment that he's had with Kyle Busch Motorsports and the trucks and Joe Gibbs in the Xfinity series, and he proves he's a wheelman. He might be a little over aggressive, but he's proven that he can win. So that's half the battle. If you're getting into that type of equipment, you have to win, and he has shown that he can. Being able to close all the way. A different story late in the series. I'm just checking in 2021, the year that he was pretty dominant. He won 5 races, 12 top 5, 16 top 10s in 22 races, running at the finish of 20 of them. Lead lap finish in 18. Finished 4 points behind Ben Rhodes for the series championship that year. Zane Smith finished ahead of him as well. So John Hunter Nemechek had won 5 of the first, I think, 13 races on the Truck Series. And after that was at Pocono, was his last win in the end of June. From that point on, he didn't win the rest of the season. So that kind of speaks to some of the questions wasn't able to get through. But we'll see what happens with John Hunter Nemechek now that he's going to the Cup Series. The other team that was involved, like Hendrick Motorsports in the Cup Series with 2 drivers represented, was Junior Motorsports, and Justin Allgaier, the wily veteran, and trying yet again to get that elusive championship, and his young teammate Sam Mayer having a breakout campaign in 2023, had gone through the summer there without a win, still had been winless after over 100 something starts. Beef with Ty Gibbs continues, and I think it'll continue for the rest of time. But I think we can look at Junior Motorsports 1 with these 2 guys in the playoffs. I mean, Justin Allgaier gets to the Final 4. I don't know how many years it's been he's gotten in this spot, and just hasn't been able to get it all together at a track which is one of his better racetracks. I think Sam Mayer the future is there for him. He has time. I don't think at the end of the day he's really worried as much about going and winning a championship as trying to go and get the finances together along with his dad's company or whatever to get up to the Cup Series, since there are limited rides these days as it is. So Mayer ended up going and having a great second half of the season, starting with Pocono. I mean, you could really, connect it. He had started putting things together around after a bad race at Charlotte. He started putting things together from Portland on, utilized the road courses to take advantage. Finished fifth at Atlanta, had outside of top 20 at Loudon, second at Pocono in a race where one of his teammates should have won. And then he started kind of putting things together there. Run of, 5 consecutive top 5 finishes with 2 wins, 2 second place finishes there. And that was on road courses and flat ovals. Then he had a rough patch after Watkins Glen leading into the playoffs. Needed to backdoor his way into the next round, won at the Roval to get in. Then he won his first career oval race at Homestead, led 46 laps there. Had issues, got wrecked in one of the 84 wrecks that took place at the end of the Martinsville race, and had to move his way up, but ended up 5th at Phoenix. We'll go and look at Justin Allgaier. For Allgaier and Mayer, Allgaier's been a man of consistency for many, many years. Both of them won 4 races. Allgaier had 15 top 5s to Mayer's 13, 20 top 10s to Mayer's 19, 3 poles for Allgaier. Led 643 laps. Sam Mayer only 177. Qualifying position was 5.5 spots better for Allgaier compared to Mayer, and 2.5 spots essentially better in average finish. Ran at the finish of 29 of the 33 races, 27 on the lead of those on the lead lap. Mayer had 26 running at the finish, 25 lead lap finishes. But I think we can. I was gonna say, we look at Allgaier wasn't able to close out trying to get that championship. But in a year where Junior Motorsports was probably on the back foot, they weren't as good as they have been in the past. You look at Josh Berry, whether it was because of being kind of distracted, being Cup sub, having to go and work for all these different organizations, if the crew chief changes didn't really work out so well for him. In the end, they were off and they didn't have a great year. The Jim Pullman is close friends with Justin Allgaier. They've worked together for God knows how many years and have known each other for a long time. So if anybody was going to get them over the hump, it would be somebody that's been a close friend. Marty Lindley, legendary late model driver. That was a medicine ball. But he was able to calm down Sam Mayer, get him into a position where he could go and utilize his talent better. Buckshot Jones was an abomination for most of the season. Then kind of sort of figured it out late in the playoffs around the same time that Riley Herbst woke up. And so Junior Motorsports had an off year, but they had 50% representation in the championship. So do we look at it as, after how the year started, do we look at it as a consolidation season, that they were that with what had happened, that they were able to make the most of it? Or is it a disappointment when you have 50% representation a year after you had 75% representation in the Final Four, and in neither of those cases the team is holding the hardware up?
I think it's a little bit of both in their case, because one, you lose Noah Gregson to the Cup Series in 2023, so you replace him with Brandon Jones, not exactly championship material, although a solid driver in the Xfinity Series. And then Josh Berry, of course, didn't win a race, and then it took until Charlotte for Junior Motorsports car to win. So kind of a consolidation, I would say. And then Sam Mayer kind of took a while for him to break out, and he'll finally break out, and he got 4 wins this year. So in a way, kind of consolidating to the 2 drivers that have been most reliable for them. But at the same time, for Junior Motorsports, they weren't quite as good, like you said, as they were in the past. Dale Jr.'s been pretty candid that they didn't have as good of speed as what they had hoped to have throughout the year. It took him a while for them to get going. He admitted that didn't give Josh Berry the best equipment in his final season in the Xfinity Series. So I think it's very disappointing to see Josh Berry not score a win. But at the same time, it's been kind of seeing what this team is made out of without some of their star drivers in the past. And Sam Mayer is beginning to figure it out here in the Xfinity Series, and I think probably can carve out a few more years here, while he waits on a Cup ride to open up and have solid results. And of course, Justin Allgaier, the wily veteran, as he said, still, for many years, perennial championship 4 finalist, but cannot, break through for whatever reason. Had a shot at Phoenix there very late, but Cole Custer was able to beat him on the final restart to get that win. So yeah, just a consolidation, I think, overall. But I think those 2 drivers will have good results in the future. Brandon Jones has got to be able to step it up here in the 9 car, and then for Junior Motorsports, I think next year it's all about getting back into the win column earlier in the season. They struggled throughout the middle portions, or the early portions, some of the middle portion of the season. So just about getting back up to speed, I think, with Joe Gibbs Racing and even Stuart Haas to a degree. So they did have enough guys in the Final Four, but they just were never quite truly as dominant as what maybe the numbers show, just based on the speed that they had relative to the other top teams here in the Xfinity Series.
Yeah, I mean, they were giving up speed to RCR for a good part of the season, and then also Gibbs, which they have gotten one of the guys that was at Gibbs, and Sammy Smith, to come over and take over the 8 car for 2024 to replace Josh Berry, Buckshot Jones in the 9. Allgaier continues in the 7, and Sam Mayer continues in the 1. So only 1 change out of the 4. Josh Berry, of course, moving up to drive for Stuart Haas Racing in the 4 car, replacing the retired Kevin Harvick. So we'll see what happens with that and at Junior Motorsports, and how they will start out in 2024. One last person to look at in terms of the championship and the playoff in general was a guy who was a solid contender early in the season, and then basically kind of disappeared late in the season, had issues, wasn't the same guy. His attitude also didn't help his cause. Fell 2 positions short of advancing to the Final Four at Martinsville. His name is Austin Hill, somebody who I think Richard Childress seems to like him a lot. I think he likes the checks he brings to the table, being daddy or mommy's money. He's a super speedway specialist of sorts, but he's not a great teammate. And he proved that on multiple occasions with the way he and Sheldon Creed raced each other. You can make the case that Sheldon Creed drove over his head in more occasions than not, but I also would say that if Austin Hill was a better teammate and actually was looking at the big picture, he can back off in certain situations, and he could have given himself another chance or given himself an opportunity later on. Instead, he put himself in positions like he did at later in the season at Bristol, which we'll get into. I mean, he started the year out pretty hot there. 3 wins in the first 5 races. Blew an engine at Coda, and then 9th place finish at Richmond when Chandler Smith won his first race. He had a pole at Talladega, but there was a couple of bad finishes. Then he went on a run. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10 out of 11 and 11 out of 13 races where he was in the top 10, many top 5s, and that's where he basically solidified his situation to be in the championship picture with John Hunter Nemechek. He wasn't winning races, but he was consistent. But after, we can look at Indianapolis. He had a couple of bad finishes there, and then finished out the regular season with a couple of top 5s. Started out the playoffs with a wreck with Sheldon Creed, then finished 7th and 9th in the other 2 races to go and get into the round of 8. Then at Las Vegas, 7th, Homestead 4th, and at the end of the race at Martinsville, we all know what happened there. They cleaned each other out, and neither of them advanced, and opened the door for Cole Custer to get in, which in turn he went and took that advantage of that and went on to win the series championship. I mean, I think we can assess RCR for what they were at the start of the season, Josh, and they were one of the fastest cars out there. They had great momentum with Kyle Busch coming into the fold on the Cup side. They had speed, and they had speed up until, I think, June when he won at Gateway. And then you look at Austin Hill, he had speed up until, I don't know, somewhere in July, really. Where he was running pretty consistent, and then I think the bottom fell out on that team, where he just wasn't able. He didn't have the same energy. He didn't have that same spark, and then with that, he started making mistakes. He started getting out of losing patience, and with that, put himself into positions where he was not going to be able to capitalize, and also had issues with his teammate. And if you can't race with your own teammate, it speaks to a lot of things. I mean, the way that RCR's situation was, it's not. I'm shocked that Sheldon Creed made it 2 years there, considering how toxic of an atmosphere it was. But how do you look at Austin Hill's season? Because they were talking about him as a championship contender. He was a championship contender for about half the season, but when it came down to it, he spit the bit, and he spent more time whining and bitching and moaning than he did actually driving out the front of out of the front windshield. Spent more time looking in the back windshield and trying to run over people.
Yeah, I mean it's an interesting situation there with the 21 of Austin Hill, and goes and wins the first 3 out of the first 5 races. Establishes and further drives in the fact that he's good on the mile and a halfs and on the super speedways, and the drafting tracks, as they say these days. But as the year went on, still fairly consistent overall. But I think at the end of the summer they really started to fall off. They're going into the playoffs, and they were still able to take home the regular season championship, but they weren't really able to. He wasn't able to really take advantage of that, of course. And then Bristol gets taken out by his teammate there for whatever reason. But it's definitely a kind of an interesting thing there with how he performed in that race, and then had chances throughout the season. And Homestead, they were fairly solid, and end up kind of going back and forth through the field and finishing in 4th, but then kind of all fell apart at Martinsville. And I think one thing that I've seen on social media, on Reddit, like people were talking about his behavior, as you say. I think a lot of people point to his interview on the Dale Jr. Download and kind of showed some of his character there, where it kind of revealed to be kind of a whiny crybaby, whatever you want to call it. So I think that definitely showed up in that interview. And then with how he was raced by Sheldon Creed at Bristol, kind of remembering that, and then how Creed needed to win the Martinsville race to make it into the playoffs, and they still would have made it in if they would have just raced cleanly to the line. But then Hill, I guess, couldn't stand that for whatever reason, and to try to take out his teammate on the final lap, and then open the door for Justin Allgaier there. So kind of shows some of the mentality that he's had so far in his career, and definitely has a needs to be able to work on that to show that he can move on and win championships in the Xfinity Series, and then possibly go into the Cup Series potentially in the future. So I think can't have that mentality and try to be a championship contender here in Xfinity, and expect to compete for titles, because eventually that stuff will kind of wear people out, and then you'll lose your opportunities. So we'll see what he does this year. He has a interesting teammate coming in that I think has kind of the same reputation there. So kind of the same, going to be 2 guys with the same reputation. Going to be interesting to see how that actually plays out compared to Sheldon Creed, who's actually a decent driver and can run with respect to his teammates and everything. But unlike Austin Hill, so we'll see how that plays out in 2024 as he gets a new teammate, and they try to make it all the way back to Phoenix, I guess, and actually close out the year with the title if they can.
Yeah, that'll be something. You mentioned it with Jesse Love moving into the 2-car, which continues with the Whelen Engineering sponsorship. So he won the ARCA Series championship, but also had incidents and made a name for himself by having a rivalry with William Sawalich and others, getting into wrecking contests with those guys. So something to see. He has similar characteristics like that to Sheldon Creed, aggressiveness wise. So we'll see how great of a teammate Jesse Love is. If he's going to lay down to Austin Hill, or if he's going to make him race for it, and how that dynamic works in the new year. The last thing we'll get into with the Xfinity Series, we'll kind of give a early, because we don't even know the full grid. There's only been drips and drabs. We don't have officially who's going to be in the Gibbs cars. We kind of know who's going to be in the Gibbs cars. We don't know who's going to be in the Kaulig cars, or at least one of the Kaulig cars. We don't know. We know Junior Motorsports. We know Stuart Haas. So in that case, we have those teams. But You have three key teams, and RCR is set. So three key cars that were winning race cars last year are open, and we don't have official news on where they are or what they're going to be. But I think here in the next few days, or we'll find out. One of those guys that are going to be hearing about is Chandler Smith. Chandler Smith came from Kyle Busch Motorsports and Toyota, went over to Colleague Racing, took over for AJ Allmendinger in the 16 car. And, he had an all right year. I mean, he won one race, Chandler Smith, and he had 3 poles. Was their consistency became a problem for him. His teammate Daniel Hemrick finished ahead of him in points. Chandler Smith got knocked out in the round of 12. It wasn't a good year in general for Colleague Racing. Chandler Smith won he won one race. Hemrick didn't win a race. AJ came back to win. I think he won 2 races in the series. I'm trying to scroll through here. Trying to find Dale Earnhardt. He went for points. These are the guys that didn't declare. Yeah, so he won 2 races, AJ Allmendinger. So, and had 3 poles. So it was an off year for Colleague Racing, and there was different reasonings or whatever for that. I mean, with Chandler Smith learning a new series, new team, that played a role. You had Daniel Hemrick, who really has not ever been suited to the Xfinity product, even with getting a backdoor win in a championship at Phoenix a couple of years ago. These cars and the way you have to race them don't suit Daniel Hemrick's style. He has a style that probably fits more of the Cup Series, and that's why he's going to be in the 31 car next year in Cup. But how do you take away, or what do you look at for Colleague Racing, Josh, as we move into what they did this year? I mean, AJ Allmendinger, when he showed up, they were fast, but he's really shown an ability to drive the Xfinity cars and enjoy himself a lot. But the regular guys on almost regular basis, weekly basis, couldn't do the same thing. So what's the difference when AJ Allmendinger's driving the car and the 2 guys that have good pedigrees and have shown ability over their careers there?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting with the way Colleagues performed over the last couple of years. We've seen them rise from just a B Xfinity team to now kind of like a top level team over the last few seasons, and this year kind of a downturn after AJ Allmendinger had been in their car for several years, and the production that he brought, just I think for whatever reason, AJ Allmendinger just fits better in the Xfinity series than he does in the Cup Series, except on road courses. So, it's I think there's just like an element, I guess, to his racing style that I guess he just fits better in that series. So you have that. Chandler Smith showed a lot of speed, almost had a win at Vegas at the beginning of the season, ends up winning later on at Richmond, and showed potential, but they also didn't have quite as much pace as what they should have throughout the year. So maybe more of a learning experience, like you said, being in the Xfinity series for the first time and kind of making impact there. But also remember he had some words with Jeb Burton after Portland earlier this season, so some stuff there as well. But I think there's potential for him to be one of the better drivers in Xfinity in 2024 if they can have the uh, right setup every weekend and be able to execute with their strategies. So I think this is a downturn year, but I think they'll be able to right the ship, especially if Allmendinger comes back into the Xfinity series here. Daniel Hemrick, it's just typical of him with his performance. It just seems like the performance that he put in 2021 to win the championship for his first and only race win in Xfinity, very one-off performance there, and just has never been able to really back that up in any capacity. So he might be good for top 10s, top 5s, and Xfinity series, but Daniel Hemrick just has never shown that race winning speed in the Cups or in the Xfinity series, and now he's going back into the Cup series here in 2024. So whatever reason, even though his Xfinity career has been very subpar compared to the talent that they've been with, it's going to be interesting to see how he's able to put it together here in the next gen cars. So and of course you have Derek Kraus coming in as well. So Derek Kraus had an interesting performance at Homestead, led laps and actually led a stage, so or won a stage. So that's interesting. So I think for Colleague, I think it's just kind of a down year just because they're kind of transitioning, but I think I expect them to have a better year overall in 2024 and beyond.
Yeah, we're gonna see that for sure. I think with AJ Allmendinger likely returning to the 16 car next year, and probably running an open third car in the Cup Series at the road courses at times. I think he'll be happier and he'll probably run better. We know that Josh Williams is going to be in the 11. Oh man. And then what is it? That's the one. Yeah, those are the two full-time cars there at Colleague. So, and then they have, I don't know if they're going to run a third car or not, but that'll be I think a more solid pairing in 2024 because Josh Williams knows how to bring cars back at the end of races. He's not a wrecker by any means. He's had to drive with very limited funds for many years, so driving for Colleague is going to be a totally different world for him. So who knows, he could have a breakout campaign and finally win a race. First race win he had in many years since he was in the ARCA series. But I guess we'll go and utilize that as kind of a jumping point as talking about the Xfinity series. So we look at what the series is going to be next year. Custer comes back. You have Riley Herbst after winning at Las Vegas. It seemed like a totally different race car driver. He didn't look like a waste of time. He actually looked like a good race car driver. So there's momentum there. You have RCR brings 50% of their team back, and they have a rookie driver in the 2 car. You have Junior Motorsports. They're getting one of the guys from Joe Gibbs Racing, who's bringing money to go and fill the ride for Josh Berry, and everybody else returns on that organization. Colleague Racing, we don't know who's going to drive the 16 car, but more or less, I think it's AJ Allmendinger, along with the Ty Dillon's going to be in the 16 Cup car, which is sad. But I guess it pays to have a hot wife and have money, because it isn't about driving ability. But and then at Gibbs, you're going to have more than likely you're going to have Sheldon Creed and Chandler Smith going over to Joe Gibbs Racing to drive in the 18 and 20. We don't know which number is going for which. They'll have the 19, which will have a list of drivers. I think the angle was Ryan Truex was trying to get funding to get a full-time ride, but it doesn't look like that's come off. After he won at Dover for his first career win. And so those are the guys. Those are all the teams, the top teams in the Xfinity series. They're all represented. They all were the representation in the playoff. Nobody really from the outside. Jeremy Clements going and getting a upset victory. I mean, the only outside team out of that was Jordan Anderson Racing, which had Jeb Burton win at Talladega, and Parker Retzloff, who's a guy who Josh, based on his being a sim guy first, and he was able to parlay great sim driving into a career on the racetrack, and now is going to be going into his second year of Xfinity with Jordan Anderson's team, a growing organization there. So, I mean, it's very early to go and make predictions. Of course, we don't even have everything official. Gibbs is not going to go away, but there's going to be teething, growing pains with two new drivers to the organization. I think Junior Motorsports, as long as they show they have more speed to start the season, it might open up an opportunity for Justin Allgaier or Sam Mayer to get off to a good start. You look at RCR, how are they going to recover from a lot of the nonsense that went on at the end of 2023 with Stewart Haas Racing? You have two guys that are high up there, great momentum after what took place late in the season. So they're kind of going from strength to strength. And I think for Riley Herbst, he's looking to actually get into the playoff, get a win early in the year and get in the playoff. Cole Custer, same thing. You want to get that win, get it out of the way, lock yourself in, and start doing R&D. I think Kaulig is going to be interesting because if you bring AJ Allmendinger back, he was a contender in the Xfinity Series a couple of years ago for a championship. We know that he can win on any road course at any time, but he also showed that in the Xfinity car he was capable on ovals too. So, and Josh Williams is a guy who is a very clean driver and is able to manage his equipment very well. So that might bode well for him while other guys drive over their heads, and he can go and make a lot of points and put himself in position not only to win a race, but to go and get into the championship mix. So, I mean, that really goes over all the teams there, Josh. I mean, I look at Junior Motorsports and Stewart Haas as the early favorites, at least because they have continuity. I don't know if you agree or if you see somebody else that could go and take off, maybe Austin Hill, but I think when you have continuity in a series like this, I think it doesn't hurt, and it'll be those teams that kind of give themselves at least a quick start in 2024. What do you say?
I mean, I think I agree with you there with Junior Motorsports. I think continuity there. You have Justin Allgaier, Brandon Jones, and Sam Mayer all coming back. Mayer's coming off of a career year, so I think it's definitely a plus for them. I think they know that they have to be better overall on speed, so I think Dale Jr. is going to make sure that happens. I think the organization knows that, and I think for Stewart Haas, you have Riley Herbst coming back, and you have Cole Custer coming back. So both of them very solid, and obviously Custer won the championship, so he has something to prove now in the Xfinity Series that even though he didn't have maybe the best overall year, compared to like John Hunter Nemechek, maybe this year they can perform kind of like what Chase Briscoe did back in 2020. So it'll be interesting to see if he can kind of replicate that performance that he had there. So expect to see that type of deal. And then I think also, with Joe Gibbs racing, they're going to have change as well. So look for them to kind of have a bit of a transition there as well. So I look at that. And then also, with Colleague, they're going to have a little bit of change as well. But, I think they have a good piece in Chandler Smith that can go out and, win races and possibly, be a driver that at least I can see making it to the top 8 in the I guess, round of 8 in the playoffs here next season.
And we'll definitely get into it more closer to February once we get more information and who the crew chiefs and the driver lineup and all that. We'll definitely get into that more. We'll move over to the Craftsman Truck Series in 2023. There wasn't a whole lot. I mean, if you look at the series as a whole, there wasn't a whole lot of momentum. The schedule doesn't help in that process because of having a stop-start way about it. But when you look at the way the series went on in 2023, there was a lot of aggressive driving. There were races which were basically unwatchable. You had Cup guys come in and cherry pick and get some victories. You had Kyle Busch, Joey Logano, and Kyle Larson. Those 3 drivers accounted for 4 wins there in 2023. But then outside of that, you had the likes of Zane Smith coming back from winning the championship, started the year out right with a repeat win at Daytona, and many thought that, and he won at Coda, put his truck on fire, and I think many of us thought that he was going to run away with the championship right there, but it wasn't meant to be, and Ford ended up losing yet another talent to Chevrolet in the process, which we'll get into with Spire because there's some news about Spire. Guy that has been in the Toyota pipeline, was an ARCA champion, and was dropped. Christian Eckes went to McAnally's team in the 19 Napa truck and put it together. He was able to have a really solid year. In the end, he gets 4 wins on the season, so a career season for him, and establishes himself probably in the sport if he wasn't before. But the guy that was the standout, I think, of everybody was Corey Heim. He was the driver that was the most consistent driver over the season, seemingly the fastest driver. He had 4 poles. Only Nick Sanchez had more poles than him. More top 5s than anybody in 12. More top 10s than anybody with 19. He had the next closest was 14. Average finish of 6.8 and average start of 7 in ran at the finish of 21 of the 22 races. But I guess we start this here, and I mean, he was a standout performer, Josh. We can look at it on two ways here. We look at what he did for the first 20 2 races of the season to get himself in a position to win a championship and take Tricon Garage, which was the David Gilliland team with Gray, with Johnny Gray, and try to go and get them to a championship. And he had basically done enough. And I think even in the race at Phoenix, he had done what he needed to do to win that championship. But then somebody that stood out, and we're going to talk about more, was Carson Osavar. And the actions that Corey Haim used in retaliation for a spin that was just unnecessary on the part of Carson Hocevar, running him over, basically cost Grant Enfinger a championship, and is not a great way to. That's a highlight. He's going to be on a highlight reel, but it's not the kind of highlight reel you want to be. Are we to believe that Corey Haim, can he recover from this? Can he go and use this as a motivation to prove people wrong, to go and say, I'm not that guy? Or is his reputation going to be sullied after what was a championship year in a lot of ways, but he didn't behave like a championship driver at the end of that race at Phoenix?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good point that you make there with with how Corey Haim reacted to that finish there at the end, and what the consequences of taking out Carson Hocevar ended up being there. 3rd and 9. What? Oh man! Wow. Okay, Trevor Lawrence to Parker Washington, first career touchdown for Parker Washington there. Okay, but wow. Okay, but with Corey Haim, I mean, he had I think for him it's not really a reputation ruiner there. I think what it really is just him settling the score with Hocevar. And I think Hocevar is really the driver we have to talk about in terms of reputation, because I think, with Corey Haim, I think next year, if he gets into this situation, I don't think he's going to do anything like that again. I think it's more of, Hocevar has been doing, pulling all the, this type of crap like all season and everything, and with running into guys, running people over, and then acting like he's sorry for himself afterwards. So I think for Hocevar, it's more of, can he clean up his act now that he's in the Cup Series? And I mean, it's hard to tell because we just saw, what we saw in the Snowball Derby is, he still is getting into it with drivers, and with Hocevar still getting into it no matter what. And we saw it in the Cup Series as well. He had a spat with Ty Gibbs in Martinsville. So, I think it's going to be interesting to see what takes place here in his career in the Cup Series, if he can clean his act up. Now he's driving for Spire, team that we've seen what he can do at GMS, Petty Motorsports, Legacy Motor Club. So can he take that to a car that hasn't really shown a lot of speed in its time in the Cup Series in the 77, but doing that without getting into people? I think it's going to be important to, especially for a team like that, with a team that's growing, but that has, still has limited resources compared to the other teams. It's going to be important to keep that car clean and keep himself out of trouble. So, I think there's two sides to that coin. I think Haim's going to be okay. Best driver across the entire season, statistically, all the way across the board. I think it's just a terrible judgment, and I think it's a one-time deal against Carson Hocevar. And on the flip side, I think covering, because of that, I think Carson Hocevar is going to be the driver that we have to see if he can, if he can change his behavior now in his driving style in the Cup Series.
Yeah, and I was gonna talk about Hocevar separately, but I guess we can talk about it this way, because we'll get to Ben Rhodes in a little bit, but Hocevar won his first Truck Series race after what had been a long time of being close, with coming really close, finishing second by getting into Nick Sanchez at Texas. He hooked Nick Sanchez at Texas, put him in the fence after he dominated the entire race, and Carson Hocevar ended up winning that race. So the reputation that he has built is one that he's the protege of Ross Chastain, and Ross Chastain had a similar MO to Hocevar, and it took basically, I think, Rick Hendrick threatening his life or whatever the hell he did after the crap at Darlington with him and Larson, that we saw a different Ross Chastain. He was muted a bit. He wasn't the same kind of guy. On the other hand, it didn't go that way with Hocevar. He kept on kind of getting into people, running over people, and it culminated into what happened at Phoenix. When you're in the Final Four, you're trying to win a championship, and you're driving over your head. You didn't have the best truck, but your crew chief was trying to give you an opportunity. You were in the mix with the other contenders, but you drive into the guy that was likely going to win the championship for no reason at all. He's not going to, I mean, whether it's Dale Earnhardt Jr., whether it's Hamlin, whether it's any number of guys, they've said that, and I mean, I don't want to give credence to Door Bumper Clear, but they had him on even, and he said he was like reformed or whatever, and he had learned or some crap. But in a lot of ways, that was an the way that he performed, the way he would perform behind the wheel didn't fit the narrative that he put out there once he got out of the truck. And that's really something that he's going to get run over a lot in the Cup Series, and it's going to cost. I know Spire has plenty of money, but it's going to cost him a lot of money in wrecked race cars if he keeps on doing some of the stunts that he did in the Truck Series. And in turn, I mean, on the flip side of that, when you look at Nice Motorsports, they're going to basically have to start over with a new driver combination there. And it's something, will they be the same team now that they lose a guy who has a lot of talent but was, drives over his head? Are they going to be able to contend in the same way, or are they going to struggle in 2024, at least initially, in a series that generally we could say is wide open, with a couple of missing teams and whatnot? The person I think is the most aggrieved out of all of the drivers is Grant Enfinger, because after Corey Heim got spun by Carson Hocevar dropped like an anchor, and Grant Enfinger put himself in position. He was battling with Ben Rhodes, and he had put himself in the place to win. And he was leading the race, and he was going to win the race. And that wreck cost GMS a chance at a third championship, cost Grant Enfinger after many years. It took him many years to win that ARCA championship. He was in a position to possibly win that truck championship on a walk-off. And now he comes in, or we're looking at him as going into 2024, and as somebody who I don't think has a job lined up full time, at least. So I mean, there's it. there's many things wrong with what happened with that race, but I think if there's one person and one team that probably has to feel worse than everybody else, it's Grant Enfinger. Has always been a model of consistency, putting himself in position, giving himself a chance at the end of races instead of doing the nonsense. But he's the guy that what can we say? He did everything he needed to do, but unfortunately, um, he was robbed of the opportunity to win that championship, Josh. But I don't think it takes away from the professionalism and the kind of guy that Grant Enfinger is as a race car driver, because he has proven over the years that he's a very talented driver and a very good with his equipment.
Yeah, I mean, I think, for Grant Enfinger, I mean, I think he's the type of driver that this truck series needs. We talked about kind of the theme since that Phoenix race has been the reputation of the truck series. And, I think Grant Enfinger is a respectable veteran. He races cleanly. He doesn't take people out. He doesn't race like, Carson Hocevar does, how he races people hard and accidentally, quote unquote, gets into people. He races with respect and kind of almost a last type of racer that we're seeing here with all the younger generation coming up here in the truck series. I think him and Matt Crafton are kind of the veterans here that we need more of in this truck series. And obviously very aggrieved. You saw that in his press conference, and he was even then still able to keep it together there. And even with Corey Haim sitting next to him on the end of the table, and then afterwards in their interaction together, you can tell he was mad, but he kept his composure and everything. So I think it says a lot about his character. And then it's unfortunate that GMS is going to go out without that title. That they should had probably had this race played out the way respectable drivers would have settled things, with Grant Enfinger winning, and then also him potentially not having a ride in 2024 here in the truck series. And I mean, I think if he doesn't have a ride, I think it's a real shame, because like I said, he's a guy whose presence they desperately need, if they want drivers to kind of clean up their act together, which I think they will. I think the embarrassment of the final race of the season, I think it's too much to ignore. And I think everybody knows that they have to improve. So I think one can only hope that, they put themselves in a situation to improve. But, I think for Grant Enfinger, he's a solid driver, and I think he deserves more than having a championship taken away. I mean, I can't say it's taken away, because he did go and pit on the final one of the final cautions there and had a chance, but just didn't come through. And of course, I think it would have been a whole lot easier if they didn't have the shenanigans with Haim and Hocevar. So I think he deserves a lot more than what he got in that final race.
And when you look at the way that the truck series is kind of landing right now with some of these small teams that are out there, there are opportunities. I would say that you look at the Rackley War effort. I think that might be somewhere where Grant Enfinger could land, and they have full funding. There, I mean, you have Thor Sport. They're bringing back the majority of their drivers, but you never know. He used to drive for them at some point. They did hire Jake Garcia to take over for Deegan. Trying to look who else is there, but the Front Row Motorsports truck, are they going to run next year in the truck series or not, after having a pretty solid deal for the last few years in the truck series? I think those are some of the vehicles there, but we'd be remiss now to not mention the man who is now a two-time series champion and has had two drunken post-race celebrations in Ben Rhodes, the beneficiary of all the argy-bargy that went on amongst that whole entire field, basically. The Ben Rhodes becomes two-time series champion. He ends up with the he goes and wins by one position. He finished second, I think, in the race, and Enfinger was third. They raced for all the way to the end there, and Eckes won the race, but no, you wouldn't know that he won the race the way they covered it. Rhodes, based on any number of metrics, it's one of the worst championship deals you ever seen. He only won one race. He had 7 top 5s. He had 14 top 10s, which is second in the series for regulars, tied with Ty Majeski. Led only 112 laps, 11.9 average start, 10.7 average finish. Ran at the finish of 22 of the 23 races, lead lap 19. That's nice. And he wins the championship. He goes and joins names. He joins the likes of course, Ron Hornaday Jr., Jack Sprague, Todd Bodine, and Matt Crafton as multi-time champions of the Truck Series. So that's the company he shares as a multi-time champion. He's won 2 out of the last 3 years. Rich Lucius coming back to the fold late in the season was huge for him, and it speaks a lot to that team. Thorsport Racing has been there forever in the Truck Series, and you're a 5-time. They've won the championship 5 times. So you just have to give them respect there. Honestly, that Ben Rhodes put himself in position. That's all you can do. The way this format is, one and done, one race and all in. You could basically finish 33rd or whatever I think in a truck is 36. You can 36 or you can finish 33rd and be the champion. In a lot of ways, it essentially ended up that way with the way the whole race went. But you gotta give them credit, though. When it didn't look like they were in position to win, it didn't look like they were gonna be the championship favorite. They gave themselves an opportunity to get in there and give themselves a chance, and they did it. So, you go back to Homestead. For him to make it in, Hocevar won the race. Ben Rhodes needed a Hail Mary pit stop strategy to end up finishing second. And so that's something that you just got to give respect to him. You got to take your hats off to Ben Rhodes.
Yeah, I think, for Ben Rhodes, which I saw that strategy at Homestead play out, and that was very interesting. They were able to kind of net their way into the playoff space of, pit strategy. They, obviously stayed out on a long run, and they were able to kind of strategize their way into the playoffs by hanging on throughout that final green flag run at Homestead. Corey Heim or Carson Hocevar and Corey Heim, they might have won the race, but, Hocevar definitely, or Rhodes, they definitely held on for a top five finish there. So, I think it shows their courage to try the strategy and confidence that they have in their ability to execute. But Rhodes just did not have a really great season overall. Didn't really lead in any category at all. So, just for him to go out and win the title like that, kind of winning by default. So, like you said earlier, so definitely a chance in 2022 to prove him wrong, or 2024 to prove him wrong. But definitely a one that they kind of won by default there. But you have to give him credit for hanging on and outdriving the field there, and outdriving Grant Enfinger, and being able to go out there and win the title. So didn't win the race either, which had a lot of damage there at the end for Ben Rhodes. So Rhodes, we'll see what he does, but goes out and parties after the race like he did back in 2021. So definitely a good result there for him, winning that title, and we'll have to see how they're able to kind of prove that they stay at the top here in the Xfinity series, and that they don't go back to what they were for most of this past season, and that they can actually go out and dominate, or at least compete for more wins and top fives.
Yeah, and that's something that we're going to see, because I think it feeds into the last topic we'll get into, which I think we've done for the last however many years on the show. The viability of the truck series. I mean, you look at the manufacturer involvement. They run a common engine, so it's they have a sealed Ilmor engine, which is pretty shitty. Really lacks power, and you can see it at most of the tracks. It leads to the kind of driving standard that we have. The trucks are too aero dependent, and it means that they don't race very well. Yeah, I mean, on cookie cutters, they aren't bad. They kind of run a pack race. Super speedways usually become demo derbies. The trucks can do well. They showed that they can run on rain tires at Martinsville, in the wet on an oval. So there is some semblance of an opportunity there. But when you look at the truck series now, we lost GMS. Maury Gallagher, of course, in reinvesting his money and his team and organization into the Cup program with Legacy, with him and Jimmy Johnson. Kyle Busch, after many years of owning his own organization and building championship-winning trucks and late models and the like, decided to sell his organization to Spire and basically move towards focusing on Brexton, his son's burgeoning career, using that kind of the money and the time to focus on that, and also with their daughter, Kyle and Samantha's daughter there. So they're Kyle Busch is still going to run 5 races a year. He'll run for Spire to probably keep the 51 number. There hasn't been any full-on announcement, but it seems like the team as is, which was Nick Sanchez with Rev Racing, but basically was a Kyle Busch truck, and then Chase Purdy driving the 4 last year will be back. Nick Sanchez had a solid year. He gave himself a chance to make it into the Final Four. Won the Rookie of the Year, finished 6th in points. Best finisher without a win last year in terms of the truck drivers. He was one of only 3 guys that made the playoff that didn't have a win. And you look at the other guys there. I mean, Thor Sport, they're going to continue as a 4-truck team. Crafton, Rhodes, and then trying to and Ty Majeski, who we're going to talk about a little bit, winning the Snowball Derby, and then they're going to have Jake Garcia move over from McAnally's team to take over that 4th truck. So young talent there. The one young gun there amongst 3 veteran drivers. I mean, Ben Rhodes is a relatively young guy too. He's been around a long time. Started out at like 18 or whatever, running Xfinity and the like. So he's been around a while. So he's a relatively young guy there. So that's Ford's representation. Tricon's representation with Toyota is Corey Heim, and then the Gray brothers. But really, it's Corey Heim. Toyota also has Dubal, which they got Jimmy Villeneuve, the guy who was the crew chief at Kyle Busch Motorsports with the 4-truck now, is going to move over. And then Chevrolet, as it stands, I mean, you look at Chevrolet teams, I'm trying to see Spire is really it. Spire and McAnally are going to, and Nice are going to be the 3 Chevy organizations up there, because you got Spire. We'll see what the truck is. Yeah, so that's rev raising. You go and have the Chevy teams. Will have McAnally with Eckes, and Daniel Dye will be his teammate next year. Then you have Nice, which will have Bailey Curry, Matt Mills, and Bailey Curry run full time. So they'll be running 2 trucks next year full time, and then they'll run probably a 3rd one, which will have Ross Chastain and Hocevar run it. And then Spire, we don't really know where they're going to be at. So I mean, there is, I guess, the framework of a series and drivers, a lot of the guys that were there in the series this past season. But are we really, I mean, the TV package, we know now they're going to continue on Fox, but or FS1 or whatever. But is it for the best that they're on FS1 when they don't send the team out to cover the races? Is it really, are we really putting a good product out there when they don't even send the announcers out there? And is this product, with the way the trucks race, the best that they can do? Or are they just kind of mailing it in? I don't think, I mean, if you want the worst of the worst, is what happened at Phoenix. But how do you show or prove that that's not what the truck series isn't basically a demolition derby, that they're actually a legitimate stepping stone to Cup here, which you have multiple guys that are going, 2 guys that are going to Cup in Zane Smith and Carson Hocevar, and you got a couple other guys that I would think have a chance in the future of getting up there.
I mean, yeah, I think you bring up a good point with Fox and the future of the truck series. And I think it all kind of plays hand in hand. I think Fox needs to take this series more seriously than what it currently is right now. They need to replace the announcers. They need to be present at the racetrack. They need more than just the reporters there and everything. You know, they need people there, and I think that would give better reputation there from the coverage, and make it seem more than just like something at the county fair, I guess. But On the other end, the Truck Series, they need to improve themselves as drivers, like I said. But you bring up good points there with the teams that we have in the Truck Series now. But obviously KBM is going away, and I think KBM, obviously I think they were gonna be around, but then all of a sudden Spire comes up and says, "Hey, we want your assets and everything." So from that, it's more of just the opportunity to take over. So it was at the right asking price for KBM, and Spire obviously is willing to pay. And I think in one hand it does show that there is some unhealthiness in the Truck Series, but at the same time, if at the right asking price, I'm sure somebody is willing to buy. So and so that's what Spire was able to do. But I think the bigger loss is GMS there in this series, and obviously their presence will no longer be felt. And not only did they lose Grant Infinger, but obviously Raja Karuth, free agent after this season. So obviously GMS, huge presence in the Truck Series for many years, but now they're choosing to focus on the Cup Series. Obviously, the owner Maury Gallagher is the one of the principals of Legacy Motor Clubs. So obviously kind of a consolidation of resources and money there, with how costly it is to run in the Cup Series versus in the Truck Series, and rather than do both. So shows what they have to do to be able to compete. So god damn it, 4th down. Okay, so so we'll see how that goes in this coming season, how those teams, the loss of those teams, how their presence will be felt, but also how I guess the teams that replace GMS and KBM, how can Spire invest into the Truck Series now, and everything like that.
That's something that we're gonna find out for sure, and what some of the new blood that comes into the series does, and maybe what some of the teams that haven't been out there or haven't stood out over the years, maybe they get an opportunity to make a presence here in 2024. Since the football game is on and Josh is sitting there on pins and needles, and what I don't think many people thought was going to be this tight of a contest, it's been a very interesting game the whole way, and that was an interesting snap. But they're battling for playoff position in terms of Jacksonville and where they can be in January. And then you have Cincinnati basically running out the string because Joe Burrow's out, but Jake Browning showing moxie here on Monday Night Football, and giving the Cincinnati Bengals a chance here to win this football game. You go, and it's coming down to the wire here in with 10 minutes to go in the fourth quarter. So that's something that we're going to have to continue to look at. But in terms of the rest of the league, or the rest of the games that took place this past week, I mean, Dallas ended up playing in a shootout and beating Seattle, assisting the 49ers prior to their game. Indianapolis got help from Tennessee, and one of Josh's former Jacksonville quarterbacks, Gardner Minshew, and Shane Steichen have there's Burrow. They're in a position now where they might be able to make the playoffs. the LA Chargers won possibly one of the worst football games in the history of mankind against the New England Patriots. The Detroit Lions held on, and even though they knocked Derek Carr out of the game, had to hold on and get that victory after they got their ass kicked on Thanksgiving by Green Bay. Atlanta probably put the Jets, murdered the Jets. If they had any hope, that went away on Sunday with that ugly performance. Pittsburgh loses. What do you call why am I forgetting his name? Kenny Pickett, and they, with an ankle injury, Arizona goes to Pittsburgh and wins, which is shocking. But you look at James Conner, he had a purpose, and he ended up going out there and playing against his former team and winning. Miami put a whooping on Washington, 45-15, continues to show that they're probably arguably the best offense, if not the best offense in the NFL. Houston, with DeMeco Ryans as their head coach, probably is one of the key guys, one of the main people that we would look at as a coach of the year candidate. CJ Stroud, likely going to be the offensive rookie of the year. They go and beat Denver, who was on a winning streak, and now they're inserting themselves into the mix with the possibility of getting into the playoffs here with a few weeks to go. Tampa Bay basically won by default because Carolina is a joke. The LA Rams put 36 points on Cleveland. Cleveland was running out Joe Flacco, who they had on their practice squad. He did Joe Flacco things, meaning he threw the ball deep. He was able to score. They were able to score some points, but then he also threw bad interceptions. And the vaunted Cleveland defense wasn't able to hold up against the Rams with Kyron Williams, Puka Nacua, and the like. The games, though, the big games that for the day were the 49er and the 49er Philly game, theoretically a revenge game after the NFC Championship, and Deebo Samuel opened a can on Philadelphia, took his right foot and shoved it up all the Philly fans' asses. 3 touchdowns for him. On Sunday, Brock Purdy had 4 touchdown passes, over 300 yards. And, you name it, they scored a touchdown. It seemed like Christian McCaffrey scored a touchdown. Purdy threw to Deebo for 2 of them, and Deebo ran for 1. Then he threw to Jawan Jennings. And then Brandon Ayuk also. So 3, 14, and 4 touchdowns for him. Hurts was 298, 1 touchdown, 26 of 45. McCaffrey had 93 yards and a touchdown on 17 attempts. The running game for the Eagles basically was shut down. In terms of the wide receivers, A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith were able to do work for early in the game, and I think for periods of the game they had room. A.J. Brown was running those hard slants or crossing routes. Devontae Smith was going underneath. He was able to get a touchdown, 96 yards on 9 receptions. A.J. Brown had 114 yards and 8 receptions. But you look at the 49ers, 116, 2 touchdowns for Deebo in the air, and then another 22 rushing yards and a touchdown. Brandon Ayuk, 46 yards and a touchdown. GK, 68 yards. Jawan Jennings, 44 yards and a touchdown there. They stopped the run outside of, the top two wide receivers for the Eagles were able to do work, but they were able to, in the end, hold them down. They held the Eagles. They scored 21 unanswered points before the Eagles scored to get within 8. Then within another couple of minutes, 3 minutes later, Purdy goes and throws to Deebo Samuel for a 48-yard touchdown, and that was essentially the game at that point. It's a huge game. The Eagles stay as the number 1 seed, but all the tiebreakers are going in the favor of the Niners. They have beaten the Philadelphia Eagles on the road. They beat Dallas at home, and they fully beat down on Seattle in Seattle. So 2 of those 3 big wins have been on the road. I don't want to bring up they going against other playoff contenders. They've been able to stand up and show they're one of the best teams in the league. So it's really a case of, can they keep everybody upright and keep this efficiency? Because if they do, I don't know if there's very many teams that can stop them. Kermit the Frog and the Chiefs, even with the officiating yesterday, they didn't play well enough. There was a bad calls in that game at the end, but in the end, Jordan Love may have established himself as yet another franchise quarterback for Green Bay by beating Patrick Mahomes on Sunday Night Football, and Green Bay now is in the mix for the playoffs. Plenty of momentum going on there in that game. It was an interesting week of football. I'm losing in my one league, but I'm still in the playoff hunt because there's 4 teams would be tied at 7-6. Essentially, 3 of those 4 teams are going to make it in. I have a matchup, a favorable matchup next week to get into the playoffs. We'll have to work from the wild card to get through, but as long as I basically put a roster out there, I should be able to advance into the playoffs. So there's that. The dynasty team I can go and look at here briefly, try to figure out if we're anywhere. Waiting on this to load. The game is still tied at 28, 6:51 to go. We ended up we're actually that's something. So we're 7, is that 7 points? Yeah, 8 points. We're essentially 8 points out, but we still have Trevor. If Trevor can throw some more completions, preferably to Evan Ingram and Calvin Ridley, that would be great. That would give us a chance. The other team has Joe Mixon. He's had 38 yards, 2 touchdowns on the ground, and 46 yards receiving. So that's what's going on there. So we have a chance if Trevor can go and throw a tutty here, put this thing away, we could possibly win this game from nowhere. He just got hit, got killed, he got rolled over on. Uh-oh. That's not good. Oh Jesus. Uh, uh, yeah. So rendered silent here.
God.
That's the whole entire uh fan base of the Jacksonville Jaguars, including Josh, are now holding on and hoping that what we just saw on replay isn't as bad as we think it was. But we're talking about this game. They were driving down the field and looked like you were going to go and take the lead again. But we'll see what happens here once we come back from commercial break. I figure just give me a second here, Josh. I mean, you want to go? I mean, it's been a tight game for your guys here today.
It's been tight. Yeah.
And it's been tough. But Trevor has played well and put them in a position to win yet again. But now I think the bigger concern is there's
Ankle.
bigger concern if he wasn't able to get off the field after he got rolled up on, and it looked like it was a very bad, awkward angle there. So we'll have to see what comes from that. Let me just go over here. So what I was thinking in terms of if we lose Trevor, then I think that's not just a problem in general for Jacksonville, but also for
fantasy.
Fantasy purposes. But more, it's a case of the fact we're losing one of the best young quarterbacks in the NFL. That's not good. He's being taken off the field. Over the years, he played basically his whole entire career at Clemson and was able to be healthy and
His right, because his right ankle got stepped on there. It looks like,
and then he got rolled. Yeah, and he got rolled over on. So Brandon McManus out to kick a field goal, and so that's
it's a miss. Yeah, we're not winning.
So
whatever.
Fucking
Vegas. Vegas. God damn it, man.
So I mean, in terms of try to go and change things up, try to change the narrative right now because it's very bad. We still have 5 minutes to go. Jacksonville's defense can make a stop here, and then we'll see what can happen. And that's he's walking on it, but it's not good.
He's walking on it, but I don't know. He's very slow and needs help. So
it's not pretty. In my my one league I'm in, I'm gonna be the number one seed, so I'll have a bye and whatever. You got some argy bargy going on there. I'll be the number one seed in this league. I won again this week. So third best week so far, or this week, and we'll be advancing into the playoffs. Have a bye there. I'll be 11-2 after this week, and then I don't know who I'm playing, but next week for whatever, playing a team that's also pretty bad, similar to that other league, and then that's a block in the back. Oh man, that's why. What
Did they call that?
They should have called a block in the back because it was obvious. But in terms of the other, in the Fall Brawl League, just to get into, so there's that. So I got that. Okay.
Let's talk about the college football playoff. Let's try to get on a different topic. Should talk about that.
Yeah, you can. Yeah, you go and I mean, the controversy of the college football is that Florida State is left out of the Final Four. I know you're a Florida guy, but Florida State went 13-0, and they're the first team out of a Power 5 conference to win all their games and won the ACC championship to go and not make the playoff. Alabama went and beat Georgia Georgia lost for the first time in 2.5 years or something, and Georgia drops from the number one national ranking to 6th. Alabama goes from 8 to 4. Texas was 7, put a beat down on, I think, Missouri or whoever the fuck it was in the Big 12 championship game, went from 7 to 3. And which is pretty interesting. And then you have Michigan won the Big 10 championship without much resistance, and their gift for winning the Big 10 and being the number one seed is they get to play Alabama in the Rose Bowl. And then Washington, who has one of the top contenders for the Heisman Trophy in Michael Penix, will be going against Texas. If you're gonna leave, there's got to be movement there. So we got, that's the college football. You want to go and
sorry, no, I mean, I think it's kind of interesting to see how that played out and everything, and with FSU not making it in, it just seems like wins. I mean, I'm a Florida guy, but it just seems like wins should matter, and they had a 13-0 season, and Alabama lost to Texas, so I just think it's hard to put him, it's hard to ignore that FSU had the season that they had, even though their QB's out for the year, right? Even though they have that, it's hard to ignore that. And I mean, my solution would be just to kind of have a NASCAR style point system, in NASCAR, we have a point system, and based on how many, where you finished, you get points. Maybe we should implement. I mean, they're expanding the field to 12 next year, but still, even with that, I think it's just tough. To even with that, we're still gonna have these situations, and I think probably the fair way to do it would be to have a award system, or not award, but a point system where maybe you get a point for every win, right? You get a point for every win in the year, but if it's a top 25, then maybe it's another point, and etc. And I guess the fallback on that, or I guess the flaw in that one is what if you beat a team that wasn't ranked at the beginning of the year, but then they become ranked? Does that change? And I guess maybe you score at the end of the year, right? At the end of the season, before they decide, or I mean, after all the championship games, conference championship games have been all decided and everything. So that's kind of interesting right there. So gonna be I think it's gonna be entertaining for sure with Alabama back in it. But and I like Alabama too. I generally hope that they can win their games, but because I like how they play, but I don't know if they really deserve to be in it. After this year they had games where they struggled to win versus teams like USF, Auburn, even though they had the highlight reel play, right? Even though they had the highlight reel play for Auburn and with the Hail Mary there, they still struggled to win in several games, and then they lost to Texas. And on the flip side, FSU had one of the best defenses in the year. Jordan Travis was lost, but they still came out and won the game. So you have to consider all of that. And I think I just think even as a UF guy that FSU had the better year, they had the better resume. So but I think entertainment has a lot to do with it. SEC is going to be on Disney and ESPN and everything, and it's pretty clear that that's where the money is going. They need an SEC team. It's one of their assets for sure.
Yeah, and that's, I think, part of what the box office aspect of it. Travis, who was a person that was going to be a Heisman candidate going down, when you're putting it to a committee, it's kind of what you get, unfortunately. But it's sad commentary, but we'll see what Florida State can do against Georgia, because now you have the number one team in the country, two-time defending national champions, not even having a chance to be in the playoff after their only loss was against Alabama by less than by a one score. And to me, at the end, they couldn't justify a possibility of a second matchup, but the reality is that's what was probably going to happen. To me, Georgia drops. If you drop them to 4, or drop them to 4, and Alabama moves to 3. If you're going to go, and then you keep Michigan and Michigan still gets screwed, but I don't think Georgia drops after losing to Alabama from 1 to 6. That also doesn't make any sense to me. It's whatever. It's part of what college football, NCAA, they should have been running an 8 or 12 team playoff for a while, but these conferences are full of shit. I forget the guy on Dan Wetzel, who writes for Yahoo Sports, has wrote books about it and how corrupt these conference the people who run these conferences are, and how basically it's this old boys club where they want to keep these shitty bowl games. They want to keep the Roto-Rooter Bowl and the Pepto-Bismol Bowl and the Church's Chicken Bowl and all the other name your fucking sponsor bowl, and keep them around for no reason. That's why we have these. And then also because the Rose Bowl insists on having to be on New Year's Day and have the post be in the afternoon or whatever. That's the other thing, which, I mean, come on now. Once the BCS national championship game came along, the Rose Bowl as we knew it wasn't the Rose Bowl anymore. But we'll see what happens with all that. I know Rutgers is going to be playing in the Pinstripe Bowl again. They'll actually be playing Miami, which is an interesting matchup. Mario Cristobal, former Rutgers assistant under Greg Schiano, will be bringing his Miami Hurricanes. He's a former, of course, a player for the Miami Hurricanes, and when they won national championships back in the day. And CJ Beathard, oh boy, is now out there. The running CJ Beathards have to get down the field to get a field goal. He's holding the ball He's about to get killed, and he fumbled the ball. All right, he picked it up. All right. That is CJ Beathard in a nutshell. I say that because I had to watch him with the 49ers. I mean, it is just dumb. But anyway, in terms of the Fall Brawl League, we got, I mean, Josh, your team right now is, you're going to win the week. You're going to have the high points and you're going to have the blowout on Matt. And then you put yourself back in the mix. From third all the way to eighth is separated by one game. Right now, if things stand as they are, both Steve and myself would be at 7 and 6. Luke and Vic are in the playoff. Then there's 4 teams: Jeff, Joe, yourself, and Wilson, all at 6 and 7 going into next week. So there's a lot to play for here. As it's right now, I mean, Luke is going to take a second loss for the first loss in a while, and losing to Wilson. Vic, I mean, I don't think that, I don't know who Jeff has. He has Jake Browning and T. Higgins. Well, the game is basically over, so he's not going to score anymore, but Jake Browning has had a career night. But Vic was able to fade that away, even with no productivity out of Terry McLaurin not even playing. Joe is beating Steve, even with Foye Uluakin having 7 solo tackles and 6 assisted tackles there. Yeah, Joe is going to win that. I'm beating Manny's team, even though he has Joe Mixon. So, so that's where we're at. I mean, you had ETN has had run first down. Yeah, he had 1 rushing touchdown today. It's not been a quiet night for him, but he still was able to produce. Obviously, the bigger concern, though, is with the man, the franchise there, and what is going to come of that with Trevor Lawrence. But when it comes to this season, I think before we move on to the roundup, I think it's been crazy. I've never seen so many quarterback injuries ever. I mean, you have Ayahuasca Aaron getting injured 4 plays into the season after all the build-up with him and the Jets and everything. You have Anthony Richardson, who was a top 5 draft pick, and I don't know how many different injuries he had, and he finally, oh man, I don't know who he's throwing that to. That was just for PI. And then, and then you got, what is it? Joe Burrow got hurt. Of course, we're seeing that now with Browning playing today. You have Kirk Cousins got hurt for the year. Was it Deshaun Watson? It's ridiculous how many quarterbacks. Daniel Jones is down for the year. I can't remember everybody that's gotten hurt for the year. I mean, it's been a lot of guys. Oh wow. That's inbounds though. But losing basically, I think, a quarter of the league's starting quarterbacks at the start of week 1 of the year is pretty bad. And I mean, it's football, obviously crap happens, but it's really bad when you see the drop off from the starters to the backup guys. In a lot of these cases, that's part of the reason why I guess we're protecting quarterbacks, because when you go to the next guy, oh boy, Oh, yeah. Well, that'll help. The That'll help. So we'll see.
Okay, we're
Yeah,
not dead. Okay, at least in
yeah,
this game.
yeah. So ETN, he stayed in bounds,
No, he's out. He stayed out
Well,
of.
yeah,
Oh,
he went. Yeah, he was out of bounds there, but I was looking
oh,
at his feet before that on that replay, and so now Jacksonville's in field goal range. Um, the reality is, I don't think they would be crazy enough to do something over the top unless it's given to them. You want to give yourself a chance to kick the field goal at least and go to
go to
overtime.
overtime.
But if they can win it outright, I mean I say that, but you don't really want to go to overtime. I don't think.
I don't want to go overtime with these guys. The way we've been playing tonight has just been, I don't know. I don't like it.
Oh God. He held on to the ball there. I'm ahead. So I'm live casting and I'm ahead by I
Well,
think 30 seconds.
you might have YouTube TV, or I have YouTube TV, but it's the stream, and Bengals guy got hurt, so.
Yeah, so we're gonna have another delay there. So I mean basically as we move forward, I'm gonna go and look at this. So next week, in the final week of the regular season, uh, I'll be facing Wilson. So if he wins, then he makes the playoffs, and I could still make the playoffs even if I lose, but I don't want to take that chance. You're going to be playing against Manny, so that's likely a win. Steve is going to be playing against Luke, and Steve, oh geez. Luke doesn't need to win the game, so he might lay down for Steve. Maybe he won't. Who knows? Jeff is going to be playing Joe, so that's for playoff positioning. And Vic is basically playing the only game which doesn't matter, in that he's playing Matt. So we all kind of hold our own destiny in our hands. If we can go out there and win, then we can move on. If we shit the bed, then who knows. So it's something that we have to see here moving forward. We'll move to the Snowball Derby. Move to the GSP Roundup. Mentioned this that Ty Majeski is one of the best late model drivers there is in the world, or in the world. I mean, in this, in terms of this form of racing, and he goes and benefits from the wreck between Stephen Nasse and Bubba Pollard, and so he's now a two-time winner of this race. He's won every big late model race basically you can name. So now a two-time winner of and he also won the cars, or not the cars tour, I forget which, ASA. He won the ASA CRA Super Series this year as well. So along with being a contender in the Truck Series, so credit to him, former winner of the race. Trying to see who finished second. Majeski, Gio Ruggiero, who's a young gun, aggressive driver, has won some big races here over this season. Was finished second. Former Snowball Derby winner Travis Braden finished third. Cole Butcher fourth. Matt Craig finished fifth. If you're watching or listening or whatever, seeing it on You probably are following Matt Weaver's coverage, and he had blow-by-blow coverage of that for sure. That's a kick there. Yeah, so big one, strikes and so on the phone adjustment, unofficial results to win more than, So Ty Majeski is the 12th driver to win multiple snowball derbies. Reach Beagle as a 5-time winner, most all-time. And then 2-time winners, Augie Grill, Bobby Gill, Clyde, Dickie Davis, that's a great name, Eric Jones, that Jones boy, Freddie Fryer, Gary Ballou, Gary St. Amant, Kyle Busch, and Wayne Niedekin. All right. So that's illustrious list there. Nassie finished 6th, Griffith, Luke Fenhouse 8th, Jacob Gomez 9th, and William Sawalich rounds out the top 10. Other notables, Caden Quapple 13th, Johnny Sauter 14th. I probably should know some of those other guys. Bubba Pollard finished 19th. William Byron 22nd. Noah Gagson 23rd. Trayton Lapsovich 24th. Derek Thorne 26th. Hunter Robbins 28th. Eric Jones 29th. Ryan Preece 31st, driving for KHI. And so that's those are some of the notables there in the Snowball Derby. In the in the Cup Series, of course, Ryan, they had the awards banquet for all of NASCAR's 3 major series. We heard we've got news in terms of spotters. Ryan Blaney will, after having Josh Williams for his whole Cup career, he will now have Tim Fedewa as his spotter, the longtime spotter for Kevin Harvick and former Busch Series driver. Fedewa, an ASA driver, Tim Fedewa, will work with Blaney, the defending series champion, starting next year. Eddie DeHaan retires from spotting, and he and Clyde will have a new spotter as well. And Josh Williams, it looks like, is going to move over to Zane Smith. So Doug Ducart, a former Hendrick Motorsports guy, has now moved over, and he's been with Ganassi for a while. Now he's going to move over as a president, become the president of Spire Motorsports. So that'll be something to see what happens with that, with their expansion into, with multiple truck teams, 3 truck teams. They're going to be having 3 Cup teams next year. So a lot going on there with Spire. Iowa, the Cup race will be at Iowa, will be the Iowa Corn 350. Petty, 75 years being involved in NASCAR. Jeff Hensley, after being Grant Enfinger's crew chief, will move over to Tricon to work with Taylor Gray in his first full-time season in the Truck Series. So that's something. We got some of these other. I see some other news. Trying to see stuff on Motorsport, if there's anything of great significance. Not really. Trying to move over to going NHRA. I haven't went on there in a while. Elite Motorsports announces, so full-time return of Jed Coughlin Jr., Bo Butner's transition to Mountain Motor Pro Stock, and so Enders, 6 after winning her 6th championship. Clarified, team is making some changes in a few areas. They also know better. Enders continued Pirates. Our teammate Troy Coughlin Jr. is behind the wheel of Jags. Oh, White Castle's pondering. So Bo Butner, say to be one member, 2-car round horsepower. Other will be named Butner, also transition director of team development. Interesting. And then new position. Aaron Stanfield will move over into the full-on into the elite team. Janik brothers, I mean, it's a crazy couple. Yeah, from winning Pro Soc. Yeah, having Johnson, yeah. So, and then Jed Coughlin Jr. Will join. Will come back full time. So they're going to be a what is it? A 3-car organization, 4-car team. So he's going to be running with his nephew, Skag Power Equipment, which they run with I think Tim Wilkerson and Tony Schumacher. So that's going to be a really tough team there. And then Jerry Tucker will run. It looks like. So he's gonna. So he's gonna run a full season. So there you go. A 4-car effort and Corral Christian and the Quadras. And then, so they're also connected to the elite team as well. So that's their Cruise Pentagon continues to have Snap-on as a sponsor for 3-year extension there. We got TV. They're going to have John Medlin. He's got John Medlin coming over to the fold. And whoever Jason Bunker is. Tony Stewart with focused on 24 with Indy Test. Johnny Lindbergh. Oh, so former driver Johnny Lindbergh will be the crew chief for the Paul Lee funny car team. So there you go. And the Extreme E, as saw, he had some MotoGP, whatever. There's some news. I mean, in terms of the Rolex 24, there was we got some of the driver pairings listed there. Dane Cameron comes back to race in IMSA after spending last couple of years in the World Endurance Championship, or at least last year. He'll be coming back to race for Penske Porsche in the IMSA series. So that'll be cool to see if he can win for a third different manufacturer. Rosberg Racing won the championship by 11 points over Layla Sands and Matthias Ekstrom, the Iconia Signs XE team. And then Molly Taylor and Kevin Hansen of the Veloce team finished third, defending series champions. X44, Lewis Hamilton's team, Christina Gutierrez and Fraser McConnell finished fourth. And then the Ganassi team, Amanda Sorensen and Anderson finished fifth. In round 9, in the first of 2 races in the Copper X Prix, trying to race calendar, race results won't give me that. So race results, our Rosberg team won the grand final over the Sainz team. Then X44, McLaren, and Veloce. And in round 10, the last race of the series of this season, the race results, the website is not great. We'll get the grand final here, Veloce wins over the Rosberg team. X44 finishes thirds. The Science team fourth, and McLaren fifth to finish the Extreme E series for 2023. We'll get more into some of the other things going on, MotoGP and IMSA and the like, next week on episode 199 of the GSP. Josh, what's going on in the world of iRacing and gaming here on the Sim segment?
I mean, I've been working on Pocono in the 87 car this week. The past week has been pretty good. Ran top 5 most of it. There was one where I was in second with a handful of laps to go and just completely lost it off of turn 3, turn 4, and slammed into the pit barrier. No caution though, so nothing came out. But Calvin Ridley is him, but it's going to be a penalty probably coming back on holding. But I don't know. We'll see. Yep, holding. Oh my lord. There. So, so there's been that, mostly focusing on the 87 car. Did a little bit of Gen 4 Cup at Homestead, but didn't really fare too well there because, what ended up happening is the iRacing servers crash, on there. So I ended up just I got kicked out of the race twice, and then I was like, okay, I'm just going to forfeit here and take the L. Cause it wasn't worth it to compete multiple laps down and the server possibly kicked me out of the game. So I was like, I'm not going to deal with that. So I got out of there and mostly just focused on Pocono, enjoyed it, really like Pocono. It's one of my, favorite tracks and everything. So, definitely a good result, there throughout the weekend in Pocono, but, iRacing Season 1 coming out here very soon. I think, tomorrow on the 5th. So Season 1 of 2024 begins tomorrow. So exciting schedule of races. Should we get leveled up here in A class and B class for oval and road. So good there. And then, of course, we've got the rain update, which they said is going to get delayed for a little bit longer, so possibly a later update. So, look out for that soon. I mean, not too worried about it, to be honest. Not too worried that the rain update's going to get delayed. I'd rather it, be smoothed out and everything, and rather than rushed and unfinished. So, like other racing games that we've seen released in the last couple of years, like cough cough, NASCAR Ignition 21. So shout out to Motorsport Games, which basically is out of business at this point, and hopefully never see them again. But iRacing, they do a good job, so look out for the rain update soon. So that's all I got this week for the Sim segment. Of course, pins and needles here, Jacksonville in overtime, and they had to punt. And 31-31 here with less than 5 minutes left in overtime.
Yeah, so oh man. I mean, Beathard had made that big play to Calvin Ridley, but it got called back, and then the next play was a cluster. So they ended up. I didn't know where Cincinnati. I didn't see Cincinnati's first possession, I guess.
No, the Jaguars had the ball to start out with.
So because they didn't score, then next score wins anyways. Man, Jamar Chase having a big night, 10 for 141. Browning running for his. Okay, so That is just so we're just going and waiting here. Josh, where can we find you on the socials?
Yeah, as always, of course, find me on Twitter, JP Huffine, and go on there and see what I have to say. Streams, so hopefully season 1 iRacing be a little bit more active on there at USailor 2, and then of course our show, which will have the show up this week at Gripstrip Podcast on YouTube. Go on there, like, comment, and subscribe to our video. Sure, this one will be a good one with our live reaction to this football game here. So, go on there and watch our stuff.
Yeah, and then you can find us at GripstripPod on Twitter, and you can find me PG Matthew 28 on Twitter, Philip G Matthew 28 on Instagram. You can find the Gripstrip Podcast, of course, on our YouTube page, and also through I think my YouTube page. There's at least the audio gets fed out to that. Then there's also my blog site, philipgmatthew.com. You can find the show on there. Definitely the highs and lows of what this game was, you'll hear on this show. Oh my God. Then we'll be back next week for episode 199. Got to figure out what we're going to talk about next week. I'm curious. In terms of, we went over NASCAR, we did IndyCar, and we did Formula One. So, kind of have to figure out what we'll talk about. We'll talk about football, that's for sure. Talk about the playoffs, and we'll see what else is going on in the world of motorsports. Maybe do some IMSA discussion or whatever. So, we'll get in all that. So for Josh, I'm Phil. Thanks for listening to the Gripstrip Podcast, and we'll see you next time.